After moonlighting on a middling movie game tie-in, developer High Moon Studios is back on familiar alien turf with the sequel to one of the most high-profile Transformers games in recent history. Coming only a mere 2 years after the original, Fall of Cybertron looks to continue the video game sub-series streak of success with a game that brings a host of considerable upgrades, both online and off. Is High Moon's homegrown spin-off the next big thing for Transformers, or does it join a long production line of franchise fodder?
Whatever lies beyond that portal is our best and last hope, my friend. We have no choice, Bumblebee. The war is lost.
In spite of the courageous efforts of the Autobots, the situation on Cybertron has grown dire, with all hope for a sustainable future on the planet lost. Chronicling the final moments of the momentous war between the two robot factions, Fall of Cybertron follows the thread set in motion by the first game, with its decidedly darker spin on series mythology. The plot treads on sacred ground for series fans with its historical setting, but it's easy to tell that the material has been treated with an eminent respect to the source. High Moon's take feels like a liberal interpretation, but maintains a solemn faithfulness in spirit. And when the situation calls for it, the game isn't afraid to stir up some levity amid the dark days of Cybertron.
You stay here. Keep an eye out.
What? No. I'm not called Cliff Jumper for nothing. You stay here. I'll take the plunge.
Later!
Awaiting your orders. Metroplex, you must destroy the Decepticon warp cannons on the outskirts of the city.
Fall of Cybertron is a third-person shooter at a glance, but it's clear that the game does more than just put iron sights and an assault rifle in Transformers' hands. More than creating a convincing appearance, the game focuses on conveying a certain feel with a wide spread of abilities, scenarios, and kits for each character in the game. This idea is best represented in Fall of Cybertron's central campaign, which makes a few noticeable changes from the previous installment. The online co-op feature is gone, as is the ability to start from whichever side of the robot conflict you choose. In its place is a more focused experience that hinges on cleverly scripted events that put set pieces and storytelling front and center. Apart from cutscenes that bookend each of the game's 12 chapters, the action doesn't break its stride thanks to the game's consistent in-engine delivery, keeping you fully immersed from beat to beat.
My sentiments exactly.
Addressing complaints of redundant visuals and gameplay scenarios in the first game, variety plays a much bigger factor in the sequel, with a greater emphasis on distinct playstyles tailored to each Transformer. With a wider palette of gameplay elements to play with, including stealth, zipline traversal, and commanding the mighty arsenal of the colossal Metroplex. Fall of Cybertron's campaign achieves a much more multifaceted texture that makes it a thrill to discover just what lies around the next corner. Veering from the critical path, players can pursue a breadcrumb of audio logs strewn among the wreckage of each level, as well as collect hidden blueprints for powerful weapons, feeding straight into the campaign's extensive item and upgrade shop. Overall, it's clear that a lot of thought and effort went into making the single-player front a deeper and more well-rounded experience, but there are still a few dings here and there. Expect a few cheap deaths, awkwardly handled events, and game glitches to reveal a few seams in the otherwise polished metalwork.
That area doesn't even appear in the schematics.
On the surface, Fall of Cybertron brings a familiar set of options to the table with the standard assortment of competitive match types and the cooperative wave-based horde-style mode known as Escalation. Dig deeper, and you'll find that the sequel brings some of the series' most exciting additions yet, with a fully upgraded multiplayer suite centered on customization. Tying in with the game's comprehensive class progression system is an equally extensive character creation function, which allows players to create their very own Transformer from scratch. Levels and points accrued in combat contribute towards a greater variety of weapons, abilities, and parts to choose from, with some of the more decorative hardware reserved for those who put some serious time in the game. It's definitely an impressive package throughout, with plenty of long-term appeal for those looking for it.
Whoever you are, I can feel your presence through the Matrix.
Try not to have too much fun without me.
Fall of Cybertron's old-school feel goes beyond its classic 80s source material. The game's only notion of a cover system comes at pussyfooting it in and out from objects scattered in the environment, which might feel primitive in the modern age of blind fire and tactical maneuvering. But with the ability to jump, roll, sprint, and most of all, transform into a highly mobile vehicular form, it soon becomes apparent that today's pervasive stop-and-pop gameplay would be wasted on one such as Optimus Prime. The game wants to make you feel like you're a Transformer, and takes a few noticeable cues from other genres in order to do so.
I like blasted stuff.
Rather than keeping you constantly pinned down behind cover, Fall of Cybertron's overlying MO seems to encourage players into adapting a more mobile style of play, with enemies that are able to detect you in stealth, deliver staggering charge attacks, and snipe you with laser-like precision from a distance. You're never quite safe staying in one position at any given time, making techniques such as dodge rolls invaluable in a number of situations. As such, the game often breaks out of its shooter mold. The feeling is especially pronounced when transforming into your vehicular mode, where additional speed and armor make amends for a rather flimsy bipedal form. Changing modes to execute a well-timed tactical retreat or strafing run feels like a vital part of the game's unique identity, and it never quite gets old in multiplayer when turning into a jet avoids most hairy situations completely.
Enjoy the moment.
Whether burning rubber into nearby cover, mounting a steady offensive on foot, or some odd combination of the two, Fall of Cybertron's fanciful play on genres works exceedingly well with the fiction that inspired it.
Take him out. Oh, quietly.
I can't see anything, but my scanners say Optimus should be right on top of you.
Melding the classic silhouettes of the cartoon with the sci-fi scrap aesthetic of the Hollywood flicks, Fall of Cybertron brings a stylish, retro, futuristic look that is all at once faithful to the franchise at its genesis, while affirming its own unique place in the Transformers pantheon. Its predecessor's penchant for drab tones and rusted hues has been usurped by a more luminous coat of paint, along with a fresh new swatch of varied environments and refreshed character models to match. It's an impressively executed production that gets better still with excellent voiceover work by the game's all-star cast. Newcomers like the ubiquitous Nolan North do a great job at filling in for classic roles, but it's the work that the longtime vocal veterans put into their signature characters that really drives the spirit of the series home.
I like the perspective this offers.
Optimus, my readings just spiked. What happened?
With a series of meaningful improvements that culminate in a more interestingly designed campaign and sustainable multiplayer experience, Fall of Cybertron continues the franchise's upward trend in quality with a sequel that's definitely worth attention. There's certainly more for fans to enjoy in the end, but even those who might not have a Unicron figure gathering dust on their shelf will still find plenty to appreciate in this enthusiastically delivered take on the series. The venerable Cybertron may have turned to ashes, but this particular slice of the Transformers pie is just heating up.
Stop running, you fool! Stand and fight!